Austin Tech Connect is the official podcast of the Austin Technology Council. Founded in 1992, ATC exists to help unite the local technology ecosystem and to encourage the spread of community, collaboration, and conversations in Central Texas. This podcast is sponsored by SailPoint. They are a leading provider of identity security for the modern enterprise, empowering organizations worldwide to put identity security at the core of their business. With a foundation of artificial intelligence and machine learning, SailPoint Identity Security delivers the right access to the right identities and resources at the right time. Now, here is this week's episode.
Welcome back to Austin Tech Connect. This is the podcast about the future of Austin's technology community, and this is the official podcast of the Austin Technology Council. My name is Tom Singer, and I've been with the Austin Technology Council now for a year and a half. And you know what? We're shaking up this 32-year-old organization. We're trying to rebuild it, reshape it, and we need you to be involved. If you work for a tech company in Austin, why is your company not supporting the Austin Technology Council? We can't move into the future as a community without a grassroots effort. And we aren't a grassroots effort if we don't have you, the people who make up the grassroots. So every week on this podcast, I try to bring really interesting people who are going to share ideas to help you build a thriving tech career. And today I am so excited because we are joined by somebody who I've known for several years, who I admire, and that is Janice Omadeke. Hey, Janice, welcome to the show.
Hey, Tom. Thank you for having me.
So for those, I'm so happy that you're here. I've wanted to have you on the show for a year since we started.
I know, it's been a long time coming. I'm so excited.
But the timing is great because now Janice has released a new book. For those of you who don't know her, Janice got frustrated as she was going up the career ladder as a young woman because she noticed there was a lack of mentorship for young women who were trying to build their careers. And she was a little bit frustrated that there was an old boys network. So she used her technology skills to build a company. She built a company called the Mentor Method that helped show people how to actually make mentorship work. She's now an author, and she is deeply passionate about helping people build fulfilling careers. And she thinks that mentorship will open up doors to things that you could never imagine in your career. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. So Janice, let's go in the Wayback Machine. What was your career before you started Mentor Method? What were you doing when you were frustrated with that career ladder?
I was a corporate graphic designer. So I studied graphic design. That's what I did in undergrad, and then entered into defense contracting. Coming from the DC metro area, it's kind of a rite of passage. You get your degree and then you find a way to wedge your way into defense contracting.
Get those government deals. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. Get those student loans paid off quick. And so worked for several top 10 defense contracting companies, and then worked in management consulting after that, right before starting the Mentor Method. Nice.
So as you were making that climb, and especially getting into the consulting side, what did you find about the lack of mentorship? What was it that made you say, hello, Janice here, help me?
I found that if you didn't align if you weren't a mirror to what the executives represented, oftentimes you were left out of the conversation. And when you remember that the majority of executives in the C-suite and vice presidents and above tend to be overrepresented, if you will, oftentimes I didn't see myself reflected in executive leadership. And if there was a woman that was on the board or a vice president, whatever their role was, every woman in the company was clamoring for their time and attention. And it's just not realistic for the thousands of women to one woman executive to be able to be mentored by that individual. And I just found it very frustrating that in a time where companies want the best and brightest, they've done the work of hiring us, but they haven't done the work of actually retaining, developing, and ensuring that we feel represented. And when mentorship was just relegated to pattern matching versus matching based on transferable skills, where you want to go, your personality, your values, whatever the case was, I just felt very frustrated by that. And when I thought about any other meaningful relationship that I had in my career, or just in general, you think about your friends, you think about life partners, you think about the neighbors that, you check the mail for. Like, any meaningful relationship that you have is based on compatibility. It's based on values alignment. It's based on, having something greater than just the external check boxes that people can easily use as a default. And so I created the mentor method as a way to bring that intentional connection in a scalable way so that companies could no longer say that they didn't have the bandwidth when it's only a few clicks and they could have actually established a meaningful mentorship relationship.
Well, this is a topic that's really important to me. I've had the good fortune in my life to have been mentored by some really amazing people, and I've turned around and paid it forward. I have several people who I've mentored who are trying to build their career. I have two people I call my fake sons. When they were in their early 20s, they both found me separately. They were like, would you be my mentor? My answer was, I'm not sure what that means, but you can always call. And my joke is 11 years later, they still call. They were at my daughter's wedding. I mean, they're part of the family now, but, and not everybody you mentor becomes, that close, but I'm a real big believer in it. And having worked a lot in law firms and consulting to law firms, I have helped law firms set up or reset up their mentor programs because a lot of law firms really suck at it, right? And they do exactly what you said. There's a woman of color partner, and then there's a woman of color associate, and they immediately pair them up that, she's going to be your mentor. Well, that doesn't mean they're going to like each other. It doesn't mean they have the same goals. It doesn't mean that their personalities are going to gel. And it doesn't mean that either one of them gives a damn about the other person. And so
Right.
I have found that a mistake companies make is they do exactly what you so eloquently said, is just sort of pattern match and think everybody's fine.
Yeah. And I just find it to be insulting, if we're being honest, because it's like, you couldn't take the time to learn about me. Like, I'll fill out a survey. Like, employees will take the time. Like, they will fill out the survey. Whatever you ask them, if there is the opportunity to meet a mentor that will help them get promoted 5 times faster, they will do it. Just give them the opportunity to share who they are, and to almost deny them the opportunity to share who they are with the employer. I just always found that insulting.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
And same, I have helped several law firms through consulting post the mentor method. And even when, the company was operating, just helping them get set up. That's a very interesting industry, as is the tech industry with mentorship.
Oh, absolutely. So why do you think companies, when companies are made up of people, why do you think we fail so badly at this mentorship? Because if we go back 40 years, 50 years, yes, it was an old boys network. But in tech, in law, in these things, people tended to get found by a senior executive and, brought along and taught. It wasn't a formal program, but it worked really well if you happened to have that match. As we've tried to make that more formal and get more people mentors, why have companies dropped the ball and just made crappy mentorship programs?
There's a level of overthinking and a sizable amount of pressure. And when those two combine, I think they lose control of the situation, is what I have seen. There's a lot of pressure to make sure that these mentorship programs are sustainable and they're successful, but they're oftentimes not given the team or the resource to do it. So let's say you have a 100,000 person company. One person inside an employee resource group is delegated with the task of building a sustainable mentorship program on top of their 9-to-5 job, in which they already have KPIs and performance review metrics that they need to meet on a daily basis. So they now have competing priorities. They have zero support and resourcing. They're not an expert in mentorship. Like, that's why I'm here. That's why, you have companies like the one that I built, and that's a lot of pressure for one individual, thinking about how they're going to ensure that their employees who are colleagues, they have lunch with these people, they are at the water cooler, so to speak, they're having virtual happy hours with these individuals. Like, they know exactly who was responsible for building this mentorship program. And if the matches don't work, or if somebody is unhappy, everyone will hear about it. And as an employee, I empathize with them because that is just so much pressure. Like, I can't even imagine. I love mentorship. I love connecting people. I don't know if it's the middle child in me or what it is, but I was born to do this. So I actually enjoy it. I thrive in pressure, so that's fine. But for a standard employee to take this on with the idealistic goal of wanting to help, that's a lot. And then not having the budget to support. I also think that it's kind of put on the back burner. It's not seen as a critical retention tool when it really should be, because it helps disperse the responsibility of developing future leaders. It helps disperse the responsibility of developing your pipeline of talent. And it also helps disperse the responsibility of retention costs. Because every time an employee leaves, it's between 50 to 400% of their salary just to replace them. And by matching them to a mentor and getting them involved in some type of sustainable mentorship program, you're reducing the likelihood of them leaving by 25%. And that's not the responsibility of the VP of Talent Management at that point. It's the mentor and the program that's set up and allowing them the flexibility and the room to proceed with that program that really helps that mentee and mentor relationship thrive.
So let's look at the tech industry, right? I think that a lot of these like mid-sized, growth-oriented, established, funded, selling product tech companies, but maybe they don't have, hundreds of thousands of employees. Maybe they're hundreds of employees.
Sure.
I think these companies should be focused on mentorship, and yet I rarely see one that is. So let's look at our Austin tech scene. What should companies be doing in addition to obviously the retention aspects? Why should companies say we're adopting this right now?
I think they should be more entrepreneurial in the way that they're motivating and inspiring their talent if they want to scale from a company with hundreds of employees to thousands to then hundreds of thousands. And oftentimes I see the tunnel vision focused on scaling and growth, which is great. I mean, that's the whole point of having a business, right? Please do that. But there should also be a focus on who's helping you build that rocket ship. If you're going to be a moonshot, you're not going to do it alone. So you want to make sure that you're keeping the talent that actually helps you do that. And mentorship is one of the best ways to do that. And I believe that if companies were more entrepreneurial in the way that they were thinking about their talent development, mentorship would be at the forefront. If a company were to lose a sizable number of customers consistently with minimal understanding of why they were losing them, they would not spare any expense in understanding where those customers were going, why they were leaving, what was actually happening. They would bring in the biggest and brightest minds. They would not care what department that employee was in. If they could help them solve that problem, they would bring them in to help resolve that. And when it comes to talent retention and mentorship, that lens is not applied. And if they just take even an hour a week, honestly, just to think about how their employees are interacting on a daily basis with the culture, with the company's goals, and making sure that the mentorship programs align to the overall bottom line and growth goals, they would get to those results a lot faster. But I think there's just a difference in the way that employers are viewing their employees.
We're going to take a quick second to thank the sponsor of this episode. Our sponsor is Insperity. At Insperity, it's not just HR outsourcing, it's HR that makes a difference. Their comprehensive, scalable HR solutions offer an optimal blend of service and technology to facilitate growth. They provide the tools to help you lighten your administrative load, maximize productivity, and manage risks so that you can focus on growth, because that's what it means to have a true HR partner. Learn more at insperity.com. And I see a lot of successful CEOs of companies here in Austin who, when I sit down with them and ask them about their journey, they talk about who was their mentor. You go back 30 years. Michael Dell talked about, George Kosmetsky, early morning meetings. In fact, dozens of people have told me about, in the 90s and early 2000s, meeting with George Kosmetsky and him really just opening up and sharing his time. Now people show up and say, oh, I want a mentor, and they get matched. And I don't know that works so much in our tech community. If we're trying to say, Mary, your mentor is going to be Bob, and Bob, your mentee is going to be Ted, et cetera. And I think that, really having a little bit of serendipity, obviously, if you have a program like you developed and things like that inside a company is one thing, but I think there's some serendipity to it, which is why I push really hard to get people involved in the community. It's why I'm trying to rebirth the Austin Technology Council, because I talked to the members who were in ATC 25 years ago, and they say, that's where I met my mentor who changed my career. I've got a few companies that support us because they're like, I wouldn't be in business if I hadn't met these people. And yet now we don't see people participating as much in the community. We see a lot of these young entrepreneurs saying, oh, I'm part of this curated group. My VC firm takes us out with the whole portfolio. And it's like, that's their little ivory tower of people, and the serendipity of meeting people in other places who could be that mentor seems to be less and less. What do you think about the serendipity of mentorship?
I think it works for some people, but it doesn't work for everyone. I'm thinking about when I first made the transition. Actually, not even when I made the transition. So I was doing dual citizenship, if you will. So I was working at PwC while also building the mentor method for the first year that I was developing the concept. And I had zero entrepreneurial network. Like I would go to events and things because I knew that it was necessary in order for me to find the right mentors to help me develop my entrepreneurial acumen on top of what I had already studied through my entrepreneurial studies at MIT. And so I was very fortunate to have met a lot of people that then facilitated introductions to potential mentors. But we also leave out a lot of the introverts and a lot of people that have adjusted to the new way of building connections. I think in this post-pandemic era, a sizable portion of the population got comfortable with not going to 10 networking events per week and pounding the pavement in that way to build those connections. A lot of people went internal and are having a hard time going back to that lifestyle. I know I'm personally having a hard time, like 10 events per week. I don't know how I did that. Like how did we do that?
Well,
10 events per week. I would pass out if I had to do that now.
10's a little much, but I do remember, 25 years ago.
When you're early on and you don't have the privilege of having, venture backable resources and you're new to this space and nobody knows you and you have that steep uphill climb of needing to establish yourself while also trying to gain your education in this space, learning about your industry and all of the hurdles, especially for women and entrepreneurs of color that we have to face, that can be very mentally and emotionally tasking on people. So I feel like the serendipitous nature of it is very valuable. 61% of all mentor matches do happen via the serendipitous nature that you're referring to, but that leaves 39% of the population out of that conversation if we say that that is the status quo. And as we're seeing the world consistently evolve, as we're getting more mindful, as we're thinking about the way in which we just operate in general and practice kind of that mind-body understanding. I think mentorship and how we connect to people is now starting to catch up with that.
Good. I think that's good that it's catching up. And you are right. We have to take into effect that people have different backgrounds, different abilities, different, things pulling them in different directions because you can't, necessarily always go after work if you've got to pick up kids, or you can't always go
exactly,
at lunch if you have a job where you have to physically be in the spot. I was quoted in the Austin Business Journal 20 some odd years ago talking about how Austin was a city where you could have a 3 name tag day because you could go to a breakfast, a lunch, and a dinner networking wise. I think those days are somewhat gone. I don't think there's that many events anymore, but I definitely think that when you can blend the two, right? Have some sort of a method to find that right mentor and be engaged in the community. I think that's where the win-win comes in, is when you can figure out how to do a little bit of both. I think personally, that's where, the magic happens. So I want to switch gears and talk about your book really quick. So your book is called Mentorship Unlocked. Why should everybody in the Austin tech scene buy and read this book? And when is it available?
So pre-orders are available now. It is released April 2nd, published by Wiley, one of the top business book publishers globally. I'm very excited, very honored to be a part of their portfolio. And people should buy it because it's addressing exactly what we're talking about, that intersection of how do you understand who you are and leverage that to build connections without feeling forced to get back on the hamster wheel of capitalism and productivity. I don't think a lot of people want to go back to that 10 networking events per week lifestyle, as you were saying. I think people want to connect in person, but there's also a sizable number of people that just want to be able to build a handful of meaningful connections that sustain them for years. And we've transitioned from being the person that has 5,000 connections and a newsletter with 20,000 people that they can just send a blast to building deeper, real connections with people where you can see a lifelong pattern and timeline of this person attributed to my growth in such a profound way that I know I can come back to them 5 years from now and pick up the conversation. It's the exact same thing. but that desire isn't being met with the tools to actually do that. And that's exactly what Mentorship Unlocked provides. It has scripts, it has templates, it has everything that someone would need to understand who they are, and then how to use that to find the right mentors, how to build those relationships, how to make sure that they're sustainable, what makes a successful mentor. If you've never mentored somebody before, that can also be extremely intimidating. And there's a whole section on how to be a successful mentor and the level of inclusivity you need and how to just be mindful in the entire process without losing your soul. I'm very excited to bring this to the world and to the Austin community. That really helped me establish all of my experiences in mentorship.
Well, and I mean, you're preaching to the choir here, because I really believe that, all these people who say, oh, I have 5,000 people on LinkedIn. It's like, who cares? A like, a link, a share, and a follow is not a relationship. It's not a business connection.
Correct.
It's not, that. And people go, oh, well, I can broadcast to however many people are on their list. It's like, that's awesome. But how many times do we get emails and all we do is delete, delete? I wake up in the morning and just go delete, 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 delete. If I don't know the person, I'm not reading their newsletter. So I can be on their list because they put me there, but that doesn't really mean crapola. So I think you and I are in a lot of symbiotico here in what we're talking about. The other thing is you've launched into now being a national speaker for associations and companies, talking about the power of mentorship and how it can change people's lives and change the companies. What's that transition like? Obviously, most people know my background. I spent 15 years as a professional speaker at corporate events. What's it like sticking your toe or jumping all the way into that business?
I thoroughly enjoy it. My whole life mission is to help people see themselves and build fulfilling careers. Whatever vehicle it takes, whatever level of work it takes, I'm armed and prepared to do that. And I really enjoy connecting with people on a deeper level and being able to engage in fireside chats and keynotes. And the Q&A portion is always my favorite. That one-on-one time. I know that you're in a room with, say, like 5,000 people, but that one-on-one time where you're really able to see someone for who they are, honor their vulnerability and asking those tough questions that they're asking in that moment, and knowing that the advice that you're giving that has been hard fought and hard learned from my own living experiences, there's nothing like it, and being able to follow up with them and say, hey, how did that go? How was the conversation with that investor? How was the conversation with that potential mentor? Did your project go well? And being able to build that relationship and check in and, follow along with their progress. It's just so, so rewarding. And I really enjoy being able to speak inside companies, help them develop their own mentorship programs based on the way people operate today, which has changed. When I built the mentor method, that was, 7 years ago, and things have changed drastically since then. And being able to stay afloat of those trends and continue to be an expert in this space to ensure that people feel emotionally and psychologically safe in the way that they're building these connections, it's a dream. I'm so honored, and I'm so grateful to wake up every day and do what I do.
So if you're listening and you're part of an association that's planning their big annual conference, or you're a company who's having a team meeting to really educate and inspire your employees, remember Janice Omadeke. She could be your speaker for your next event. And this whole idea of Mentorship Unlocked could be shared with everyone in your audience. So we're going to switch gears again. You moved to Austin 6 years ago, something like that. What brought you to Austin? You started this company in the Washington, D.C. area, and all of a sudden, one day, I think I met you. You'd moved to Austin like an hour before. We both spoke at a Capital Factory event during South by. How did you end up here?
I got into the Mass Challenge Accelerator, run by Mike Millard at the time. And so I was only supposed to be here for 4 months. I had been to Austin once before for South by 2017 and loved it, but hadn't anticipated moving here, and then applied for the Mass Challenge Accelerator, got in, and just fell in love with Austin and the city and the people. And it felt like the Ellis Island for entrepreneurs. There was just this fresh powder in the atmosphere where you could really connect, and find the right mentors, as we were talking about, and kind of build your tribe. And there was so much room to thrive here that 6 years later, here we are, and I still love it.
So do you think Austin is still as welcoming as it was 6 or 7 years ago? I think Austin's gone through a lot of changes. What do you think is the current state of our tech community? What's good and maybe what's not as good?
Austin's gone through a lot. I feel right now that it's a bit like an amusement park, if I'm honest. There's a lot of visitors and people that like the branding of Austin, but are not as invested as, say, you and I are in ensuring that it remains what it was, meaning it remains creative, it remains collaborative, it remains an inclusive environment where people can really thrive and continue to grow. And over time, I've seen a degradation just based on that kind of amusement park headspace of I'll pop into Austin for 4 months. I'll pop into Austin for a year. Then I'm going to go to Miami. I'm going to go to San Francisco, wherever people end up going after that, that leaves a few extra footprints along the way that I don't necessarily love seeing. Mm-hmm. But overall, I do think the collaborative nature of Austin is still there. I think the power of community is so strong, so strong. I feel like anytime I open up my inbox, to your point about the newsletters, like there's a new community that's popping up, a new meetup, like people are still very eager to connect, and that fills my heart. Like I'm still grateful and like excited to see that. But I would welcome people that are new to Austin to really take the city more seriously, realize that there are people like you and I that are here to stay. And, we'll be building families. You have built a family here, and we'll continue to contribute to the tech ecosystem that demand a certain level of respect for the work that's been done and the work that will be done by the people that truly stay here. Like I know the mayor's task force that's run by Jan Ryan and has incredible women like Lauren Washington and various others that it's doing phenomenal work in really elevating the conversation around how do we ensure that Austin is inclusive and that more women-led businesses are able to continue to grow. That way we don't see a great migration of these incredible businesses leave the city because they're not able to get resources. And I'm deeply encouraged by that work. I think that's not something that I saw when I moved here 6 years ago. And to see that evolution and kind of that wake up call of we needed to not just be something that's relegated to smaller startup communities, but an actual, government backed entity means a lot.
Well, I agree with you on all of that. But boy, I think you have one of the most profound answers I've ever had to that question. When you talked about
thank you.
A lot of people come and they're just here. They're just visiting. They're just passing through. They look at it as, oh, it's cool. It's trendy. We'll come. We'll see what happens. I always used to say that when somebody moved to Austin, within 6 months, they had an unnatural love affair with Austin. I've been here 33 years, and there used to be this thing where you'd see people show up. They came because Trilogy brought them here, IBM brought them here, or whatever reason. And all of a sudden, 6 months later, if they got laid off, they'd wait tables before they'd leave Austin, right? It was like a thing that was this core. And I think that your analogy really hit at my core, that is a thing. One of the things I've done since I've started working at the Austin Technology Council is I realized that a lot of these people have moved here in the last 10 years. I mean, our population has been booming for 33 years, but the last 10 has been like, it's just kind of crazy. And a lot of people don't understand how Austin became this tech hub that it is. They don't really realize. They think that, like 10 years ago, we started having, Mass Challenge and Capital Factory and these things. And all of a sudden we became this tech hub. And it's like, we can really go back to the 60s, 70s, 80s, and especially the 90s to watch this trajectory. So I created a speech called The History of Austin Tech, and Opportunity Austin and the Chamber and a few other groups have had me do for visiting organizations. The mayor's office has me doing it during South by Southwest so that people can understand, whether they're local or they're visiting, how we got here. I won't say what city, but another city that is an up and coming tech center. I'm friends with the CEO of their tech council, and she called me and said, my board wants to start a South by Southwest. How do I do that? And I gave her the history of how South by Southwest came to be. It was a small music festival that took place during spring break in the bars because they could get the bars for free. And there was a whole bunch of them on 6th Street. And over 10 years, it became one of the hottest music festivals in the world. And all the people from New York and Los Angeles came to discover new bands. Then they started this little thing called Interactive that was like around interactive technology. And what did that mean? I mean, back then it was like CD-ROMs where you click a button, do your own story, whatever, and how technology was entering into the business. And then 10 years later, that took off and it became the biggest tech conference imaginable. And so I told my friend at this other thing, I go, you can't just say we're starting South by, because it didn't this wasn't what they set out to do. It was a music festival, and then it was this little techie thing, and then it became supernatural. And without knowing the history, this other city could have invested a crap load of money and you could build it and nobody would come. And
100%.
And so I try to teach everybody that history of all these things, be it South by, be it Capital Factory, be it affordability, be it IBM, be it the University of Texas and Dr. George Kosmetsky. There's so many little pieces that came together in a perfect storm that allow us in 2024 to be Austin. And without the knowledge, we don't appreciate it.
Exactly. It's the knowledge, it's the history, it's the people. I think the people is really the big thing. I mean, I wish them luck. You can't replicate South by. Like, South by is the reason I was motivated to apply for Mass Challenge. It's the reason that I even visited Texas. Like, I had zero reason to be in Texas otherwise. And when the DC Economic Development Council had a house here in 2017, I had just started the mentor method. I was chosen as a delegate to represent entrepreneurship, and the energy of interactive and the entire conference was something that I had never felt before. And you can't replicate it because yes, it's the location, but it's the people that convene. I mean, people are flying from all over the world for the energy that just comes from the foundational aspects of Austin, Texas.
Yep.
So you can't you can't replicate it. And it's one of the best things. And, Hugh Forrest and team have just done such
amazing,
an incredible job, and the insurmountable level of pressure and work that they do. I mean, there's no breaks for them. They just have to continue going. And I'm so grateful for everything that they do and the way that South by magically somehow just gets bigger and better. And every year I'm like, there's no way they can top it. And then Hugh's like, surprise,
we're doing
1,000 other things and it's even better and like even more memorable. It's really remarkable. And I'm so grateful that they created South by Southwest, and we have ACL, which convenes so many people as well. Like, there's nothing
Formula
like
One
it.
brings people from all over the world. I mean, it's really all come together in sort of this, I call it a perfect storm of goodness. And it's interesting. I'm really excited about South by Southwest 2024. The Austin Technology Council is supporting it. I'm speaking. I'm doing the history of Austin Tech. Hugh has asked me to do a breakout sort of on that. And
congrats.
And our members, by the way, can get discount tickets for discount badges for South by if they reach out to me at tom@austintechnologycouncil.org. I'll verify that your company's a member and I'll give you a code, and you get some big savings on your badge or badges for all your employees. So make sure if you're listening to this and you're planning to go to South by, come to me before you get your tickets, and you're going to save money for our members. So, hey, before I let you go, I ask everyone who comes on the show this question, and you actually already sort of touched on all of this. I believe that community, collaboration, and conversations can solve all problems. So when I say those three words, community, collaboration, and conversation, they're all important. But which one resonates with you the most and why?
Collaboration. Because you can be in community or in a community, but not actually building with those people. And conversations do not mean that you're pushing the needle forward.
Yep. And you're right. There's a lot of people who show up who talk about collaboration and then don't collaborate. And that's a detriment to all of us. So more collaboration. Good for you, Janice. Hey, last question. Somebody's coming to visit. One of your high school friends from Washington, D.C. is coming to visit. They've never been to Austin before. Where's the one place you make sure you take out-of-town guests?
Oh, good question. I feel like it changes because there are so many new restaurants and attractions that open every week. But I think South Congress still.
Even with the changes from weird to Lululemon, you're cool with South Congress still.
We will wear Lululemon and explore the weird. Yeah.
I love it. Well, Janice Omadeke, if people want to get a hold of you, how do they find you?
Yes. So there are a couple of ways to do that. If your company would like to bring me in to speak, we are offering an amazing opportunity to pre-order copies of Mentorship Unlocked for your employees in lieu of a speaker fee. So if you're interested in that, please shoot me a note via my website, janiceomadeke.com, or you can find me via LinkedIn, Janice Omadeke. If you are interested in other collaboration opportunities, I'll be very active during South by Southwest. I'm doing a South by Southwest book reading with the legendary Kim Scott, the author of Radical Candor and one of my author mentors. And I'm just obsessed with her. So that's taking place March 10th. So feel free to pop in then, say hello. We'll be offering a live mentorship session for one of the lucky registrants and participants. So that's also another great opportunity. And then, I think those are the big two. Would love to collaborate, would love to stay in touch, and let me know how I can support you.
Nice. Well, for those of you who don't know Janice, I've known her since about the week she moved to Austin. I kind of accidentally met her, and I've always thought she was one of the most impressive people in our tech ecosystem. So I'm glad to have her here on the show. I'm glad to have her as part of the community, and I will go to her book reading on March 10th for South by, and maybe ATC will win the free presentation, and we can make it one of our monthly breakfasts. So I'll be putting my name in the hat for that. So again, Janice, thank you for being here. And thank you to everybody who tunes in and listens to this show. Do me a favor, go tell all your friends in tech that they're missing out if they're not listening to Austin Tech Connect. And make sure that your company is a member. As I said at the beginning, we can't be a grassroots organization if we're not supported by the grassroots. And guess what? You are the grassroots of the Austin tech community. So make sure that your company is signed up to support ATC today. You can find out more at austintechnologycouncil.org.
Thanks for listening to the Austin Tech Connect podcast. Make sure your company is a member of the Austin Technology Council and add your voice to the future of our tech ecosystem in Central Texas.